Hello people, Bored now back with you for another horror movie review, and this time it's a big one. It is The Shining from 1980, Stanley Kubrick's iconic horror movie starring Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall and Danny Lloyd. So I went to a cinema screening of this tonight at my local picture house. So quite a good, my first time seeing it on the big screen. And it's my first time watching it in a while actually. I did see it years ago, but it has been a while, and obviously, people know it very well. People who, even if you haven't seen it, you know it very well because of the iconic shots and many of the sort of famous scenes. It's the one with the scary hotel. It's one with Jack Nicholson and the whole "Here's Johnny" scene, the whole red rum thing with his son. And of course, we're just a few days away from its long awaited sequel, or maybe it's not that long awaited, who knows. But anyway, the sequel is about to come out. It comes out on Halloween. That is Doctor Strange. Freudian slip there. Doctor Strange is, of course, a superhero movie. Doctor Sleep is just days away. It comes out on Halloween, which is quite fitting, with Ewan McGregor, Rebecca Ferguson, and directed by Mike Flanagan, who has a pretty solid horror CV. I particularly like Hush from him, and he was involved in The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix, which I absolutely love. So there you have it, pretty good pedigree. Obviously, it's one that's going to be scrutinised by the hardcore Shining fans, and yeah, there's certainly going to be question marks and trepidation going into Doctor Sleep, but there'll be a review of that coming up. So for now, I'm going to do The Shining, the original movie. This is, of course, from a Stephen King novel originally. I apologise if you can hear my dog in the background. He's really loud tonight, as he is often. So from a Stephen King novel, and King famously hated the film version, really didn't like it. So I can't comment because I've never read the novel, but obviously it must take quite the detour from the book. So the basic setup is that Jack Nicholson is a writer. He's also been doing some teaching work, but he gets a new job, which is, looking after this hotel during the off season. This hotel in like a sort of a deserted, picturesque sort of area out in the mountains. So we see him going for the interview at the beginning. He gets the job, and he's told, I guess this is a classic sort of horror type moment where he's told going in, the interviewer sort of says, we should let you know that then the last guy blew his brains out here, the last caretaker. So that's one of those horror sort of setup, and Jack, it's fine. Okay, I can understand why you tell me that, but it doesn't deter him. It probably should, but as we find out throughout the film, Jack's not in the right frame of mind, folks. So he takes the job, and he uproots his family. So Shirley Duvall plays his wife Wendy, and we have the newcomer Danny Lloyd as his son Danny. And they move to the hotel for the season, for the period he's meant to be looking after it for. And there's this little odd, things seem sort of above board and fine at first, but there's sort of little odd things like the fact that the chef there knows then the son Danny, his nickname is Dog, even though it doesn't seem like the mother or the father had told him that. And slowly it's about Jack Torrance, the Nicholson's character, descent into like just absolute chaos, just losing his mind, and eventually snapping, becoming a psychopath, and turning on his family essentially. But there's many different things. I mean, there's like this whole dream-like sort of sequences where he imagines going to a bar and he sees certain things. So it really gets into the psychology of what he's going through and his descent into madness. And at the same time, there's something up with the boy as well. He has these sort of visions as well, and he has what seems like a second personality. They see a doctor early in the film. So there's quite a lot going on in the plot, really, but it sort of goes into the psychology of it. And I should say, obviously, Danny keeps saying "Red Rum, Red Rum," and that was, of course, referenced by Xander Harris in the first season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The episode was The Puppet Show, the hit television show, I should say, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Xander Harris referenced the Red Rum in that episode, The Puppet Show. So I had to get my Buffy reference in there. That's for Pete from Mild Fuzz, that reference. I'm getting it in because, of course, they some of you might know they have a review of The Shining coming up, just to give them a little plug. So he may well do the same reference. It will be interesting to see, but I got there first. Sorry, Pete. So that Red Rum line is obviously very famous. As I said, we've got the "Here's Johnny" line. All the rest of it, the sort of famous scenes, like the dream scenes in the bar, his kind of manic laugh and him talking to himself. It's all very sort of famous. And I'll just set up what I previously thought. I've always been a bit indifferent to The Shining. I'm in the small minority who does find it overrated. I've always found Nicholson's performance a bit too hammy. Even from the start, even when he's acting, obviously fairly normal. I mean, I guess that's probably intentional, and there are meant to be signs from the start that he's a little bit manic, there's something. I mean, it's Nicholson full on Jack, if you like, the sort of crazy persona and the way he's at times reveling in sort of his like chaos and evil, if you like. So I've always found his performance a bit too hammy, and the whole "Here's Johnny" scene I've always found just a bit too cheesy and silly. I mean, when he starts going into the like the Three Little Pigs kind of talk, and the big bad wolf type thing, that stuff I just find too cartoonish and on the nose. So that was my position. I went to see it tonight, and obviously it's a good one to see on the big screen because it is very atmospheric. It's very distinct. Brilliant use of music, soundtrack, and the atmosphere. And there's no doubt there's some beautiful, like, distinct use of colours as well. So a great one to see on the big screen, even if you're not the biggest fan. So where I am now, I've changed a little. I think I like it a bit more than I did. I still find it hit and miss. There's still plenty of things I don't like. But yeah, my opinion has gone up, I think, and probably seeing it on the big screen did make a difference. I've never seen the European version because apparently I was told today by someone there's a European version which, it cuts out some scenes, like in the American version, which is the general, cut release. it apparently has, a few extra scenes from the European version, and apparently some of that stuff isn't. Some of the stuff they left in, well, certainly my friend thinks could have been taken out. It's certainly quite a long film, and there certainly are scenes I think could have been taken out, scenes that just don't work, and yeah, drag the pacing down a bit. But I've never seen the European version, so it'll be interesting to see that for contrast. So yeah, I am a bit more positive on it, having seen it tonight. I still have issues with it, but I think what it's worth saying, especially if you can see it in the cinema, is it is just unforgettable. There's just something about the experience of it, and I mean, sometimes it's sort of unforgettable, maybe for the wrong reasons. I think there are scenes that goes where it does become too cheesy, too hammy, and just a bit too silly, and certain scenes that drag on a bit. So I think at times maybe it's not unforgettable, if you like, or it is unforgettable, but maybe for the wrong reasons. But even so, I can't deny it's an experience, and you can't say that about all films. There is something unique and distinct about it, and I mean that was obviously Kubrick. So in many ways this is classic Kubrick. So I mean, I'll go through what I like and what I don't like, really. Um, but yeah, it's probably, I say, a frustrating experience just because I find certain scenes so inspired, so genius, and overall I really love the atmosphere of it. I can't, there's no denying it. It got under my skin. It unsettled me pretty much from the word off. Um, but yeah, then there are those more frustrating scenes, and I think it does drag at times. So I mean, just speaking of the setup and the characters, I actually don't find the characters that interesting. I mean, Shirley Duvall, who I normally love, she just isn't very good in this. I don't know, she's just kind of dreary and melodramatic, and I think later when she's really in danger, when obviously shit has hit the fan and obviously Jack's gone nuts and he's trying to kill mother and son, I think she's good in those scenes because she does come across as just generally terrified, which, I mean, who knows, that might have not been acting that much. The actress might have been like really scared. But I think she's good in those scenes. But throughout the film, I don't know if it's just because she wasn't given that much to do, because obviously the boy and obviously Jack Nicholson are given the more meaty stuff to do. She kind of feels a bit damsel-y, although of course in the end she does kind of step up and stands up to the husband. But yeah, it maybe feels like not the best role for her, and unusually for her. Yeah, I just find her performance weak in it. Normally I really like Shelley Duvall. But the setup, with the characters, I just find them a bit bland and a bit kind of annoying. I mean, the stuff with Danny and the Red Rum and the other persona, I do find annoying. I actually find him doing those voices quite annoying rather than, intimidating or scary. I think the actor's pretty good as it is. He feels quite natural, but yeah, him doing the voices and stuff I do find quite annoying and not that interesting. So the setup I kind of don't like. It just drags a bit, and I wasn't really interested in these characters and their lives, which is kind of an important thing for the setup of the film. Um, I think Nicholson's performance worked a bit better for me this time. I mean, certainly he's very convincing when playing, psychopaths and people who are unhinged and the sort of manic side. And I mean, I think some of what he's doing fits in with the characters and certain scenes, but there are other scenes where I do find it a bit too hammy and yeah, like he's a bit too knowing, if you like. And I mean, I know some people would defend it and say, it's being an entertaining B movie or whatever, then it's meant to be. And I guess it's the hysteria of the whole thing as well. And I get that argument, but yeah, for me, just sometimes it's just a bit too silly, and I can't take it seriously at times. But I think his performance grew on me a bit on this watch. He certainly makes the character his own. There's some unforgettable moments with him, and what I'll say is, I mean, in some ways, I wanted them to make it a bit more of a straightforward, like kind of haunted, house. I mean, haunted hotel in this kind of story. I think they do overcomplicate things at times, but at the same time, that is part of the appeal. The fact that it really gets into the psychology. And I think some of my favourite scenes are the more surreal moments. So I do love the sequences in the bar. Like, so it's basically him imagining and he's in a bar because he's been told that they don't serve drinks during the off season, and so essentially this is all in his head. Although he's obviously in the ghost world, if you like, because the place is haunted. So he has this whole conversation with this bartender, and we get more of an insight. We hear that he's essentially unhappy in his marriage because he hasn't had sex for a long time, and obviously he started to get ticked off at her because of her like disturbing him when he's trying to write, on the typewriter. But yeah, the more surreal scenes like that, I do really love. Just very distinct and unsettling. It really gets into the psyche and just gives the film a different feel, makes it feel quite different from a lot of horror movies. And those sorts of scenes, those sorts of moments, those real strange mood pieces, I really tend to enjoy anyway. And we get little details that are revealed as well. And it is quite a smartly sort of put together sort of plot. So we get the whole mystery surrounding the previous caretaker, and I mean the scene in the bathroom I really like with him, and obviously it's like the ghost of the previous caretaker, but the previous caretaker just saying, you're the caretaker, you've always been the caretaker, and that's obviously one of the big twists. I don't know exactly how it works out, but just the fact that they've obviously, because it ends with the picture of Jack there in the ballroom, and it dates back to like 1912 sort of thing, so obviously something to do with his ghost sort of thing. But again, largely it's left open for you. But I really like the scene in the toilet with him and like the old caretaker. And I think that's a really good scene, and we see that it's the caretaker who's really like manipulating him psychologically, and it's him who's sort of like gets him to go after the wife and children, because he tells him about, and it's really phrased in a really unsettling sort of way, because he says, it took my wife and son a while to settle in, but then I can't remember the phrasing he uses actually, but it's something like I made alterations, or I had to make an intervention or something like that. I'm probably getting it wrong, but he uses some phrase like that. And then so he plants the seeds in Jack's head, and he should obviously, it's his usually sort of thing to kill his wife and his son. So that's kind of what sets him off, or what sets him on the path to do that. And there's some brilliant, just genius moments of direction by Kubrick, like the shot of Danny riding like the toy sort of bike down the hall, and like the discontinuity in the editing, how it flicks back and forth, and just the small details like the distinct sound of the, like, whatever they call it, the tricycle or the little bike, like rubbing up on the mat. Obviously the two girls when they suddenly appear in shot, that's a really freaky moment. The blood come flying out of the elevator, just like this sea of blood is really distinct, really visually distinct, really dramatic and surreal, and really unsettling, the use of sound. The main theme is obviously one of the great horror themes. I think it just strikes fear in you from the start. I mean, there's a lot of very kind of experimental sort of music, the use of sounds, kind of ambient, sort of unconventional, really is the word, because quite often you'll get a scene where it seems as though there's not much happening, not much that you would say is dramatic anyway, and yet it does go quite sort of hyper, it goes quite high pitched, and some of that I'm a bit mixed on, but it definitely has an effect. It definitely puts you on edge, there's no doubt about that. But yeah, there is some great music. I mean, the main theme, as I said, is one of the best horror main themes ever, really. There's no denying that. But yeah, Jack is a bit hammy, and I guess I should talk about well, I've already said it really, and I think my feelings are the same on it. The Here's Johnny scene. I mean, I guess it's quite effective because of the way it builds up to it, but yeah, I do find it a bit hammy and a bit silly. Does the whole, big bad wolf sort of line, and it's just too cheesy and on the nose. I just can't take it seriously. And again, maybe that was the point, but I don't know. My impression is this is meant to be a straight sort of horror movie. And yeah, bits like that, I kind of find it funny as a comedy, but I'm not really sure that's the point. So I have to be honest, that still doesn't work. But again, there's some great tension, some great direction. The whole back half of the film, there's this real build up and this real tension. Him chasing Danny through the snow, through that maze, and just the way the cameras follows them, it's all very frantic. So that's really nicely done. So there's lots of great stuff, but there's also plenty that sort of drags it down just a little bit. I mean, the scene with not the old woman, but the naked woman in the bath when she comes out and basically seduces him. And again, it's obviously in his head, but it's I think it's to do with the fact that he supposedly hasn't had sex for a long time. So again, he's just imagining it, sort of thing, because it's, a pleasurable sort of thought, and it all turns quite twisted, the way, and she turns out to be sort of grotesque, sort of thing. So that's kind of going to the other extreme. That's his worst sort of fear. And just revealing then there is something sinister at this hotel. But that scene, I think, is too silly. It's a bit too full on. There's some kind of silly, like, makeup effects, and that's just one of those scenes that just doesn't work for me. So there's a few scenes like that sort of drag the film down. It is a long film. I mean, it's not long, it's like 2 hours, 20 minutes, but I think it could be a bit shorter. But then again, I think the length does add to the psychology as well. So overall, I am positive. I'm more positive on it than I had been in the past. But because of some of the scenes being too silly and just certain things, yeah, it's still not a classic for me. That's where I am. It's a good film, and it has some amazing moments. There's no doubt about that. And it did get under my skin, no doubt about it. And that's all you can ask for a horror movie. But there are certain moments that drag, certain scenes that I was getting quite bored in, and just certain moments that make it a bit more inconsistent. It stops it from being the masterpiece, in my opinion, that many people see it as. I still find it a bit overrated, but I did like it more, as I said, this time around. And no doubt about it, as I said, it is an unforgettable experience. So yeah, that's my view of The Shining, my review, which I saw tonight at my local picture house. If you've seen it recently or you want to chip in, then let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll give my rating on it, but you can let me know yours. My rating, I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10. So again, a strong rating, but yeah, certain things just drag it down a bit, but more positive this time anyway. 7 out of 10 for me for The Shining, the original from 1980, and of course not too long till Doctor Sleep, the sequel, comes out, so I'll be reviewing that soon. But let me know your thoughts on The Shining in the comments below. You can get me up on Twitter as well if you want to comment on my reviews or ask me any questions. I'll put my name's Keith Beard, so I mean, look that up on Twitter, but if not, I'll put the link in the comments below, in the description part, sorry, and also my letterbox with my film rankings or ratings. You can find that. I'll put the link in that, and also the Cinema Professor Facebook page, which is for my weekly radio show and a few other stuff. So thank you for listening. I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.